because everything is energy. And that's how it works. When we all began, we were all part of God.
What if you've been touching energy your entire life, but just didn't know it? What if every emotion you've ever felt, every room you've walked into and sensed a vibe, every inexplicable moment of knowing wasn't a coincidence, but a glimpse of a hidden ability waiting to be unlocked? The forgotten force in your hands. You see, life is energy, and you're not just a receiver of it, but a powerful sculptor of it. But here's the secret most people miss. You don't earn the power to manipulate energy. You remember it. This is the great turning point for anyone who feels like they've been stuck in spiritual limbo, endlessly seeking answers from the outside. Because once you stop searching outward and begin tuning inward, you'll notice that your entire body is a living, humming vessel of energy. And not just passive energy, interactive, responsive, intelligent energy. Have you ever walked into a room after a heated argument and felt the tension lingering in the air? That's not just intuition, that's your energetic field reacting to a frequency imbalance. Or have you ever thought about someone intensely and then had them call you moments later? That wasn't luck. That was energetic entanglement at work. The truth is, most people are already manipulating energy unconsciously. They just don't realize that emotions are energy in motion. Those thoughts are electrical currents. That intention is a directional force. When you combine all three with awareness and practice, you don't just react to the world, you reshape it. Let's ground this with a story. There's an old Zen parable about a student who traveled across many mountains to meet a renowned master. When he finally arrived, breathless and eager, he asked, "Master, how do I control the energy of life?" The master silently handed him a cup of tea. As he poured, the cup began to overflow. "Stop!" the student shouted. "It's full." The master smiled. "So is your mind. Come back when there is space for something new." This is the first step toward unlocking your hidden power. Not learning more, but unlearning what blocks you. And most people's biggest block is that they've been taught energy is something woo-woo or abstract. But energy is more real than the walls around you. It is what those walls are made of. Even physics confirms this. Everything in the universe is made of vibrating particles. And yet, when you zoom in far enough, those particles dissolve into pure potential. Not matter, not mass, just waves and frequencies, shaped by attention and observation. That's not spirituality, that's quantum mechanics. So, where does this leave you? Right at the center of something far more powerful than you've been told. Your breath carries an electromagnetic signature. Your heart produces a field detectable several feet beyond your body. Your brain, when quieted, can synchronize with natural rhythms of the earth itself. You are not separate from the energy around you. You are the energy. The question is no longer if you can manipulate it, it's how conscious you are while doing it. To begin unlocking this skill, start small. Stillness is not inactivity. It's clarity. When you close your eyes and tune into your body, what do you feel? Warmth, tingling, a pulse in your fingertips. That's energy speaking. That's the language of frequency. And like any language, it gets clearer with attention. Many traditions begin with the hands because they are natural conductors. Rub your palms together briskly for a few seconds, then hold them apart. Can you feel that magnetic push between them? That invisible pressure? That's not imagination. That's the subtle body responding to intention and motion. When you start tuning into these sensations, without judgment, without the need for fireworks, you begin training your awareness like a muscle. And just like any muscle, It strengthens with repetition. Soon, you'll notice that your thoughts shift your energy. Holding a vision in your mind changes how your body feels. That placing your hands over a part of your body in pain brings warmth, sometimes relief. That focusing on gratitude, not just as a concept but as a felt experience, causes your field to expand. You don't need to wait for a guru, a retreat, or a perfect moment. You don't need ancient scripts or hidden scrolls. You only need one thing to begin, and it's the one thing you already have: awareness. Because energy doesn't obey doubt, but it does respond to belief. It listens to where you place your focus. It amplifies what you repeat, especially emotionally. It's like a river. If you try to dam it up with fear or overthinking, it resists. But if you learn to float with it, direct it with gentle intention, you begin to co-create. And that's where everything changes. This isn't about becoming some mystical master overnight. It's about remembering what your body and spirit already know, that the unseen world is more powerful than the seen, and that you are not a bystander, but a participant. You are energy. You always have been. And now it's time to listen to what that energy wants to say. Tuning the inner instrument. There is a quiet power in learning to listen before you act, not just to words or sounds, but to the subtle currents within and around you. The energy you carry is not just raw potential, it is a form of communication. Like an instrument waiting to be tuned, your inner field is constantly in resonance or dissonance with your surroundings. Most people never stop to ask, what station am I broadcasting on? Or more importantly, what am I tuned in to receive? To manipulate energy with intention, you must first become fluent in the language of sensation. This isn't about having visions or performing miracles. It begins much more simply, with awareness. And awareness doesn't require belief, it requires attention. Imagine entering a room where someone just had a heated argument. Even without a word being spoken, you feel it. The air seems heavy. Your chest may tighten. Your mind becomes unsettled for no reason. That is your field reacting to a foreign frequency. You've tuned into a discordant note, and your body knows it before your thoughts catch up. This isn't mysticism, it's resonance. And resonance is the key to all energy work. When your field is calm, clear, and coherent, it begins to influence your surroundings instead of being swayed by them. But if your field is scattered, if your emotions are chaotic, if your thoughts are restless, then you become like an untuned instrument, producing noise instead of harmony. So how do you shift? The first tool is stillness, not the kind that numbs you, but the kind that sharpens your perception. True stillness is active. It invites you to listen to the rhythm of your body, the rise and fall of breath, the subtleties of sensation. Breath is especially powerful, not just because it sustains life, but because it bridges the physical and the energetic. It's the only function that is both automatic and voluntary. This makes it a perfect doorway. Try this. Bring your attention to the space between inhale and exhale, not the breath itself, but the pause between. That brief moment when everything stops and there is only presence. That space is pure awareness. It is from that silence that energy responds. The second tool is emotion, not the kind you suppress or judge, but the kind you observe. Emotions carry frequencies. Joy and love expand your field, making you feel connected, whole, uplifted. Shame, fear, or guilt contract it, making you feel small, separate, or defensive. By observing emotions without clinging to them, you begin to shape your internal atmosphere. You become the weathermaker of your own reality. This awareness leads to the third and perhaps most overlooked tool, imagination. Imagination is not fantasy, it is the creative engine of reality. What you vividly hold in your mind begins to shift the frequencies around you. And this happens regardless of whether you're conscious of it. Most people use imagination unconsciously, creating futures they fear, replaying scenes that wound, or visualizing outcomes steeped in doubt. But when imagination is paired with conscious focus and emotional charge, it becomes a force field, not a metaphorical one, a real one. Your body responds, your field shifts, your energy ripples outward and changes your interaction with the world around you. In Hermetic philosophy, as above, so below, as within, so without. This isn't just poetic, it's instructional. If you want the energy around you to change, it begins inside you, not by force, but by frequency. A Tibetan teaching speaks of the clear light of mind, a pure state beneath thought, where awareness is like a mirror, reflecting everything, clinging to nothing. This is the space where energy responds best, not in the turbulence of overthinking, but in the quiet clarity beneath it. It's here where the most subtle yet powerful truth is revealed. You do not push energy, you invite it. Invitation is different from control. When you invite energy, you align your frequency and allow it to move as it will. You set the intention, open the channel, and let go. The tighter you grip, the less flow you allow. This is where most people stumble. They try to force energy to obey, but energy is like water. It seeks the path of least resistance. To work with it, you must soften your grip and trust its intelligence. And it is intelligent. Ancient sages, mystics, and healers across cultures speak of energy as aware, responsive, and precise. You don't command it like a machine. You partner with it. You co-create. The deeper you go, the more you begin to sense subtle shifts. How your thoughts change the density of the air around you. How your posture alters your emotional state. How your words carry vibration that lingers long after sound has stopped. Every act becomes an act of energy. Every choice a broadcast. Soon you no longer think about energy manipulation as a thing you do. It becomes how you live. You walk into a room and center it. You speak and your words calm or elevate. You listen deeply, not just to others, but to the invisible feedback from your own field. This is not about control, it is about attunement. Energy does not respond to ego. It responds to clarity, sincerity, and coherence. The more aligned your inner state becomes, the more influence you exert, not by effort, but by example. The world begins to reflect your frequency, not because you forced it, but because you embodied it. As we move forward, we will explore the deeper tools of intentional transmission, energetic boundaries, and activating energy centers within the body that have been dormant for too long. But for now, remember this. You do not need to chase energy. You do not need to beg for power. You only need to remember, it is already yours. The power behind the eyes. Directing energy with intention. By now you understand that energy isn't something separate from you. It is you, and it moves with your awareness. But there's a deeper, more focused tool in your spiritual toolbox that many overlook. The direction of your gaze and the clarity of your intention. Not the casual glance or the distracted stare, but the kind of gaze that comes from presence, anchored in the now, alert yet soft, aware yet not rigid. This gaze is one of the most ancient forms of energetic movement. From the Egyptian priesthood to the yogic adepts of India, the eyes were seen not just as windows to the soul, but as transmitters and receivers of subtle force. Have you ever looked at someone across a room and felt their attention before a word was spoken? That invisible pull is not imaginary, it's energetic, and it reveals the power of directed consciousness. To manipulate energy consciously, your focus must become more than a habit. It must become an act of will, not in the sense of straining or striving, but in the sense of being deliberate. When your thoughts, your emotions, and your attention are all aligned and aimed in one direction, the world begins to bend toward it. You become like a magnifying glass in the sunlight, focusing the chaotic light of possibility into a precise flame of creation. Directing energy starts with understanding that your body is not simply a physical container. It is a channel, a bridge between realms of form and formlessness. The chakras, meridians, or energy centers often described in Eastern traditions are not poetic metaphors. They are organizing structures of energy, each with a unique signature. When activated and aligned, these centers act like lenses, refining the energy you transmit. The center most tied to focused intention is the one between the eyebrows, often called the third eye. But activating it isn't about rituals or esoteric knowledge. It begins with quiet attention, resting awareness between your thoughts. Not trying to see something out there, but to sense something in here. This is where energy becomes responsive, almost immediate. When your third eye is engaged, not in fantasy but in subtle perception, you become like an antenna. You can feel shifts before they happen. You sense people's truths beneath their words. You walk into a place and your inner compass adjusts, sometimes before your logic even catches up. This isn't psychic in the Hollywood sense. It's simply refined awareness. But there's a deeper secret. The more you trust this awareness, the more accurate it becomes. Mistrust dulls the signal. Doubt disperses the energy. Belief isn't required in the traditional sense. What's required is experiential confidence. Like learning an instrument, you won't master it by thinking. You'll master it by doing, by feeling, by listening. Repeated practice becomes silent knowing. Let's shift now to the heart, not just the emotional heart, but the energetic heart center. Many overlook this when trying to manipulate energy, yet it is the true anchor of aligned intention. Without the heart engaged, your focus becomes rigid, mechanical, or manipulative. But with the heart present, your energy becomes magnetic. It pulls rather than pushes. It harmonizes rather than dominates. In ancient Sufi teachings, the heart is described as the mirror of the divine. It reflects truth without distortion when it is still. When your intention rises from this place, it carries a frequency that the universe responds to instantly. The energy you emit is no longer based on egoic need, but on soul-level clarity. You are no longer seeking to control reality, but to co-create with it. To truly manipulate energy, you must mean what you feel what you think, and think with precision. That's not repetition, it's resonance. Now, let's address resistance. Energy doesn't always move easily, not because it's stubborn, but because our own habits and attachments act like knots in a flowing river. These knots often show up as tension in the body, anxiety in the chest, or heaviness in the mind. You might try to direct energy toward a goal, only to feel it bounce back, deflected by hidden fears or unacknowledged doubt. In those moments, don't fight the resistance. Witness it. Everything you resist strengthens its hold. Everything you observe with neutrality begins to dissolve. So instead of pushing harder, listen deeper. Ask yourself, what part of me doesn't want this? Or what story am I still carrying that contradicts my intention? These stories are like rogue programs, running silently beneath your conscious command. Once you hear them, name them, and release them, the flow begins again. And when the flow returns, ride it. There are moments when your field aligns so strongly with your vision that synchronicities multiply. You think of someone and they call. You imagine a solution and it appears. You feel drawn to a place and discover something life-changing there. This is not coincidence. It is coherence. Energy flows where awareness goes. That's not a slogan, it's a law. The clearer your awareness, the stronger the flow. Eventually, you no longer ask how to manipulate energy. You realize you already are, constantly, unconsciously or consciously. Every thought is a ripple, every emotion a current, every action a broadcast. The only question is, are you choosing it? Grounding the current, the power of earth energy. Energy is not abstract. It's intimate, immediate, and endlessly shaping your experience. But here's the secret many seekers miss. Power without grounding is chaos. It's like trying to channel lightning through a twig. It doesn't matter how much awareness you've cultivated, how high your vision reaches, or how refined your intent is. Without grounding, energy has nowhere to settle, and transformation becomes unstable. Grounding is not a passive act. It is a skill, and in truth, it's one of the most overlooked dimensions of energetic mastery. The Earth itself is not simply a planet. It is an ancient field of frequency, a living record of every vibration that has ever existed in the human story. In every indigenous tradition, the Earth is revered not as an object, but as an intelligence, a mother, a teacher, a force. The moment you plant your awareness in connection with her, not just physically but energetically, you begin to draw from a source that is older than time. Let's be clear. Grounding is not just walking barefoot or meditating near a tree, though those practices help. Grounding is about alignment. It is choosing to occupy your body fully, to bring your energy out of mental loops, abstract realms, and scattered desire, and return to presence. Grounding happens when your energy is not rushing ahead in future fantasy or tangled in past memory, but inhabiting the now with trust. You'll feel it when it happens. Suddenly, the nervous system settles, breath deepens, your thoughts become clearer, fewer. There is a sense of anchoring, not in stillness alone, but in clarity. From this space, manifestation becomes more than a concept. It becomes a current. You can feel it move through you like roots finding water. Now, imagine pairing this rooted energy with the focused intention we spoke of earlier. That is when you become truly magnetic. This grounded magnetism is what the ancient Taoists referred to when they spoke of the uncarved block, a natural power that arises not from effort, but from alignment. They knew that when the human will was rooted in the earth and attuned to the Tao, the underlying flow of the universe, life didn't need to be pushed, it unfolded. Grounded energy also keeps your spiritual practice from floating into fantasy. Many who start exploring energy manipulation get swept up in chasing signs, symbols, or mystical highs. But without grounding, these become distractions rather than tools. The key is to remember that your body is part of your energetic system, not separate from it. To neglect the body is to lose touch with the vessel through which energy flows. Your cells, muscles, and bones carry memory. Trauma isn't only mental, it's embedded in the flesh. Grounding practices like breathwork, movement, dance, or even slow stretching begin to dislodge these energetic blockages. They signal to the system, it is safe to be here, it is safe to release, it is safe to flow. Some traditions teach grounding through connection to the lower chakras, specifically the root and sacral centers. These are your stabilizers. When they are clear, energy from the higher realms can pass through without overload. You stop feeling too sensitive or energetically flooded and instead become a clear channel. You can feel more without being overwhelmed by it. You also become more resilient. Grounded people are not people who never feel shaken. They are people who know how to return to themselves, to stillness, to sovereignty. When others are thrown into panic, they stay centered, not because they're numb, but because they know how to recalibrate. Grounding also reclaims your attention from the digital and mental noise of modern life. Our world is fast, fragmented, and flooded with signals. Most people live above the neck, constantly thinking, planning, and reacting. But when you are grounded, your awareness drops into the whole body. You begin to listen with your gut, feel with your heart, and move with intention. Life slows down, not because less is happening, but because you're no longer being dragged by your own mind. And here's the paradox. The deeper you ground, the higher you can reach. The more rooted your frequency, the more stable your manifestations become. Ideas become outcomes. Feelings become realities. Intuition sharpens. Guidance becomes obvious. There's no more guesswork or second guessing, you know. And that knowing changes everything. Grounding also dissolves energetic envy or lack. When you are in your body, plugged into the earth's wisdom, you stop chasing someone else's timeline. You stop measuring your power by someone else's expression of it. You realize that your energy signature is entirely unique. No one else can move energy the way you do. No one else needs to. Grounding restores your permission to be you, fully, without apology. But grounding is not something you master once and forget. It's a relationship, a practice, a return. Extending your energy field, shaping reality without a word. By now, you've likely begun to sense something powerful. Your energy doesn't stop at the edge of your skin. It moves beyond you. It enters rooms before you speak. It lingers in spaces long after you've left. Whether you realize it or not, you're always sending signals, vibrations that shape your surroundings, that influence moods, that create openings or tension in others. This is the often unspoken art of energetic presence. What makes this more than a spiritual idea is how tangible it becomes when you pay attention. Have you ever noticed how some people walk into a room and the air shifts? Or how being around certain individuals feels calming without them doing or saying anything at all? That's not charisma, that's coherence. When your energy is coherent, meaning your body, emotions, and thoughts are in quiet agreement, you begin to project stability. You become a field of order in a world of inner and outer chaos. And that field communicates more clearly than words ever could. This is why silence is often the most powerful language. Most people try to control life through action, force, or persuasion. But the truly awakened begin to realize that presence, not pressure, is what moves things. The clearer your frequency, the less you need to convince, explain, or chase. Your energy does the talking. This ability isn't mystical. It's natural. Children do it all the time. So do animals. They sense energy long before they interpret behavior. As adults, we're often taught to numb that instinct. But when you return to your own body and awareness, you reactivate that same sensitivity, and with it, the ability to shape environments from within. One key to extending your energy outward is intentional stillness, not the kind of stillness that suppresses emotion or masks discomfort, but the kind that radiates from deep peace. Stillness born of internal alignment doesn't just pause chaos, it softens it. Your calm becomes contagious. It's also important to understand that energy follows attention. Wherever your focus goes, your frequency flows. This is why worry can quickly become tension in a room, and why loving awareness can warm even the coldest atmosphere. If you enter a space with focused, grounded intention, whether to soothe, to energize, or to bring clarity, you begin to influence the unseen. Monks have known this for centuries, so have healers, sages, and mystics across all traditions. They didn't need to speak to teach. Their energy was their instruction, and that power didn't come from striving. It came from alignment. Let's also talk about how this impacts relationships, especially in communication. If your energy is scattered, anxious, or reactive, no amount of polished words will land well. But if your inner state is steady, if your emotions are coherent and your body is relaxed, even silence becomes magnetic. This is how you begin to transmit rather than perform. And transmission happens whether you're speaking or not. People may not be conscious of it, but they always respond to it. Trust is felt more than earned. Safety is sensed before it's defined. This is why some individuals feel safe instantly. They are energetically anchored. They don't leak. They don't cling. They don't pretend. To cultivate this kind of field around you, you must first learn to stay within your own. In other words, maintain sovereignty. Many lose their energetic clarity by absorbing others' emotions, opinions, or projections. But you don't need to absorb in order to connect. Empathy does not mean entanglement. The more you stay rooted in your own frequency, the stronger your field becomes, and paradoxically, the more sensitive you grow without becoming drained. When this begins to happen, you may notice strange shifts. People may feel more drawn to you, even if you say less. Conflicts may begin to resolve more easily, without long arguments. You might find that the right opportunities appear without constant pushing. This isn't coincidence, it's energetic alignment shaping your external world. Your field is always creating. The question is whether it's doing so consciously or by default. By extending energy with awareness, you are no longer at the mercy of your environment. You become a quiet influence on it. And this can be cultivated in simple ways. A quiet breath before entering a room, a clear intention set before a conversation, a return to center when the world pulls you out. What begins as a subtle practice becomes a lifestyle. You begin to feel less reactive, less easily shaken. You respond instead of reflexively reacting. People may begin to describe you as calming, grounded, or even magnetic. But really, it's not about you. It's about what's flowing through you. You're simply in tune with something deeper than noise. Directing energy, the art of conscious influence. You've felt the pulse of your own energy. You've noticed how your presence can shape the air, calm a room, or shift an interaction. But now comes the part that so few ever truly master: directing energy. Not just letting it emanate, but guiding it with clear intention, like a current bending toward a precise destination. Every thought you think is a blueprint. Every emotion you charge that thought with becomes the architect. But without direction, those blueprints remain sketches lost in the wind. Energy doesn't just move because you want it to. It follows clarity. It follows the command. And most importantly, it responds to belief. You're not just a receiver of life, you're a transmitter. You've always been broadcasting, but most do it unconsciously, cycling through loops of worry, doubt, or distraction. Once you take the reins, everything changes. You stop reacting and start initiating. You begin to create with your frequency, not by force, but by resonance. Directing energy starts with a refined will. That doesn't mean pushing hard. It means becoming still enough to listen, focused enough to choose, and open enough to let it flow without grasping. The power you're working with isn't something you generate, it's something you allow. You shape it by how clearly you align with it. In ancient traditions, this was known as right intention or focused awareness. In mystical schools, it was called the directing of the life force. In more modern terms, it might be likened to laser focus or flow state manifestation. But names don't matter. What matters is this: what you concentrate on with emotion becomes energetically real. Let's say you want to direct energy toward healing, whether for yourself or someone else. First, you must remove interference. That means quieting the noise of the mind, softening inner resistance, and becoming still enough to sense the field around and within you. You cannot channel clean water through a clogged pipe. Once clear, you begin to see the outcome, not as hope, but as certainty. The more detailed and emotionally resonant this image becomes, the stronger the current. This is not daydreaming. This is energetic architecture. The image is your instruction, and emotion is the charge that delivers it. And here's the secret most people overlook. You don't need to push. You don't need to force belief. The more relaxed and sure you feel, the more fluidly energy moves. Desperation blocks. Calm clarity opens. That's why so many find their manifestations take root, not when they beg, but when they trust and release. Let's look at another form: protection. Sometimes your energy needs to hold a boundary, but not through walls or anger, through frequency. When you are internally anchored in your truth, and you've set an energetic intention, such as only what resonates with peace may enter, you create a subtle, real field. This is why some people can walk through chaos and remain untouched. You're not shielding through fear, you're declaring through resonance. What about sending energy to others? This is where it becomes sacred. Whether you call it prayer, light work, or intention setting, the act of holding someone in your field with love, clarity, and trust is one of the most potent forms of energy direction. You are not fixing them. You are aligning with their wholeness and sending a signal that says, "I see you healed, whole, radiant." This works not because you are manipulating their outcome, but because you're amplifying a frequency that already exists in the quantum field, and you're choosing to tune into it. You're offering a mirror that says, "This is possible, this is real." Even science has begun to catch glimpses of this. Studies on intention, heart coherence, and the observer effect in quantum mechanics all suggest that consciousness influences matter, not through pressure, but through presence. So how do you make this practical? You begin to choose your focus. You stop scattering your energy across every fear, every distraction, every trivial pursuit. You get still. You tune in. You visualize outcomes that vibrate with peace, wholeness, and truth. Then you let that image become emotionally alive within you. And then, here's the most important part, you release it. You let it go, like planting a seed in soil. You don't dig it up every 5 minutes to check if it's growing. You trust the process. You act in alignment, yes, but you don't chase, because once you've directed energy with clarity and trust, the echo is already on its way back to you. This process is not something you master once, it's something you practice daily. With every word you speak, every image you focus on, every emotion you feed, you're either scattering your energy or directing it. And that means you're either living by default or you're choosing your reality from the inside out. Becoming the living conductor, energy as your language. When you reach this point, the shift is no longer about what you do with energy, it's about who you are as energy. Something deeper happens once you stop trying to use energy and instead become an extension of it. You stop asking for signs and start becoming the sign. You stop reaching outward and instead allow your entire being to speak the frequency you once struggled to find. To live as a conscious conductor of energy is not to perform miracles on command or manipulate others with hidden power. It is to recognize that your inner coherence, your alignment, is the real power source. Your presence becomes a tuning device. Environments begin to respond to your state. People shift around you, not because you're demanding change, but because you've stabilized your own current. This is the moment where intention is no longer a task, it's a way of breathing. When you enter a space, you don't force peace into it. You carry peace so clearly in your field that dissonance either dissolves or removes itself. Many ancient mystics and sages described this phase in metaphor. Some called it becoming the hollow bone, others the clear flute. The message was the same. Remove obstruction, ego, and effort, and what remains is a pure current. A living vessel through which intelligence flows. Not the intellect of the mind, but the creative intelligence of the universe itself. In this state, you begin to move differently, not slower, but more deliberately. Your choices reflect inner truth, not outer noise. You speak less, but say more. You radiate calm, even in chaos, because you're no longer vibrating at the same rhythm as the storm. Your frequency has become your fortress, not a wall, but a magnetic field that attracts only what matches its tone. Energy at this level is no longer something you try to do. It becomes something you are. Your thoughts are no longer random, they're guided, not because you control them with force, but because you've made room for stillness. That stillness speaks first now, and through it, you begin to hear life differently. This is when synchronicity becomes daily, not because you're lucky, but because you're resonating with a wider intelligence. You start to feel moved by something larger, yet unmistakably intimate. Ideas flow in at just the right time. People show up when needed. Old wounds surface not to haunt you, but to release themselves and make space for more clarity. Living as energy also means embodying responsibility. Because once you recognize your vibration as a creative force, you no longer blame the world for your circumstances. You see through the illusion of victimhood, not in denial of pain, but in recognition of your role in shifting its frequency. You choose differently because you know differently. When Carl Jung spoke of individuation, he described the path toward becoming whole, not perfect, but complete. And it is that same wholeness that becomes your language when you live as energy. You don't need to advertise your healing, your awakening, or your power. The room already knows. The space already feels it. It's important here to remember that this state doesn't make you a guru. It doesn't remove your humanity. You'll still feel sadness. You'll still meet resistance. But you won't confuse those experiences as your identity. You'll hold them like passing weather, knowing the sky is never defined by the storm. People may not understand you. They may sense your difference but not know what to name it. That's okay. You're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to hold a signal, your signal. And those who are tuned to its frequency will hear it, even without words. This way of living doesn't require you to escape the world, but to meet it from a different layer. You shop for groceries, answer emails, meet deadlines, but behind every action is a current of presence. Every step becomes sacred, every glance a mirror, every moment a choice point. And when energy becomes your language, the need to convince, control, or chase disappears. You begin to live as the cause, not the effect. This is the final layer of the journey, not because there is nothing left to learn, but because you've learned how to listen. You've discovered that energy doesn't begin with crystals or rituals. It begins with awareness, it builds through clarity, and it lives through embodiment. So now, you don't just know how to manipulate energy, you are energy, moving with conscious will through the field of possibility. You are the current, you are the signal, you are the living proof. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.